It's pat on brands. Watch how you brand it, man. A pat on the back is a pat from the man. Better be branded, man. A pat from the pat is a pat on the brand. If it's enormous, flawless, gorgeous, don't be cautious.
Right. Good afternoon and welcome to this Imbokodo edition. My name is Nompulelo Satsha and I'm super excited and honored to actually host today's session. We will introduce our guests at a later stage, but of course we want to welcome and give a warm welcome to those who are joining us, live streaming us, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, the ladies, because it is our month, and we get to learn of the amazing human beings that carry nations, families, countries, our children in this life. But also thank you to the gentlemen that have joined. I want to thank our platform leader and CEO of Lorato Agency, which is Add to Others, Thokozani Tumeni, Mahlangu, who has given us this opportunity and platform to get to learn some gems that are going to be dropped by our guest. Without further ado, of course, we're going to introduce, so we had a bit of a debate, do I call her Ausi or do I call her just by name? Because I feel like the respect goes with having a prefix to say Ausi Mang Mang, but because of course, young as she is and an amazing and beautiful lady, Lebo Madiba, our guest for today. And just to give you a bit about her, because when I got her brief, I was like, okay, well, a girl needs to study and needs to actually elevate, because we are looking at our strategic communication expert, a content maverick and a brand builder, technology enthusiast and a PR maven. I just knew that this is why you do PR, so that you can write briefs like this about yourself. I always wanted to be a celebrity, but clearly I found another passion that can make me a celebrity.
Yeah.
With over 20 years of experience and 20 years, her journey in PR, digital, brand, and marketing includes roles in both agency and corporate, as well as the less traveled journey of entrepreneurship, which we'll get into just a bit. She uses her blend of expertise in PR, brand, and marketing to help South African and multinational brands solve complex business challenges and to build and protect corporate reputations. Chief Marketing Officer, as we have said, she handled the rebranding of the JSE listed digital technology provider, Etienne. This included amalgamating 4 subsidiaries that came together through acquisitions under one brand and taking them on a journey of the design of a common culture and employee value. I mean, we can go on and on, but this is a lady who held leading PR agency, who worked for PR agency Ogilvy PR as a PR and influence, and FCB's Redline, as well as running her own agency, PR Powerhouse, which she founded in 2011. She has a number of industry accolades to her name, including being named among Avance Media's 100 most influential young South Africans in 2018. Her entrepreneurial journey has seen her placed in the top 15 in the South African chapter of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women Certificate Program for female entrepreneurs at the Gordon Institute of Business Science. What a mouthful. Wow.
A lot.
Welcome, Lebo Madiba. It is an honor to be able to share this virtual stage with you and to facilitate today's session. I'm super excited to get to know more about your journey. And I think also for people to learn quite a lot about your journey and what they can take, whether it's within the industry and generally as a woman.
Thank you so much, Mom.
Thank you. And just to start off, I think it's only fair to perhaps share who I am. I am a young lady within PR and influencer marketing. I work for a global brand in cosmetics, and I look after 10 countries in Africa. And yeah, I mean, we're going to get into a bit about my journey as we go into your journey, but it would be lovely to also understand how you developed. I mean, I had come from a BCom accounting and taxation background. I thought I'd become a CA because I knew I couldn't do anything inside. I blow up the facility. So I knew it had to be something in commerce. I did want to do marketing, but until I got to learn that if you're a CA, you can be anything you want to be. So if you say you want to be a doctor, you can. I was like, I'm going for that title then. Little did I know during that time, then I found myself finding back to study television and screen arts and was in commercials and then advertising and branding. Then I was like, this is life. This is really all I just wanted to be like. But could you give us a bit about who Lebo Madiba is?
Sure. My background, I mean, I've always known that it was going to be in media and marketing. My mother was a news junkie. We were that household, you just watch the news and that's entertainment for you.
Relate.
Yeah. So it was natural that that was the direction I was going to go. I had a huge passion for reading as well. So anything that I put my hands on, I would read. And when I was I'm old, but I'm not Aussie. So when I was in standard 8, I think that's what it was. We had a field trip at school and went to the newsroom of the Sowetan newspaper. And I met Ntate Agri-Cluster there, and I was sold. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to be a journalist. I saw what was happening in the newsroom, and it got me excited. And I was like, yes, this is what I'm going to do. And then post-matric, I wrote an entrance exam at Technikon Pretoria for journalism. And it was 2 tests. There was the English part and it was the general knowledge. And I completely flunked the general knowledge. And they said to me, you speak good English, you write good English, but you don't know your general knowledge. We can't have you. So can you try PR? And in the PR fraternity, they had international communications. And that's what I chose. And I studied that for 3 years at Technikon Pretoria. And it's been 23 years since then.
So, I mean, like I said, I think we will go into the development in terms of your scholastic, but like you say, I think it's very important to kind of, to realize that our journey is kind of led to, we knew what we wanted to do, and everything kind of led towards that finally. So perhaps you can give us into, once now you have graduated, now entering the market, and growing in the market.
So my first role in PR was part PR and part admin type of role. It was for a young women's development agency called the Young Women's Network. I found them in a copy of Cosmo magazine, and I called and faxed. There was no email at the time. And eventually they called me, but when they called me, it wasn't even an interview. They said, who are you and why are you such a pain? And they took me in, and while I was there doing the type of work that they were doing, the Gauteng legislature hosted what was the first Young Women's Network for Women's Month in August of 1999. And I was placed in the task force that was going to arrange the media relations of that part. So I had the likes of Savita Mbuli with me in that panel, and we had lots of fun, and I got to see the buzz of being in media. And that's when I decided that I'm going to look for a PR job in an agency, because I thought that's where the fun and the buzz is. And then I found a job in an agency called eCommunications. eCommunications specialized only in technology PR, and that's why the tech enthusiasm comes from me. So it was this big, brave world where I came from not knowing much to knowing everything that the likes of IBM and HP and those types of companies were about. So I was there for about 3 years, and I needed growth. Moved to another tech agency, and 3 months later, that company went under and I was retrenched. So felt like my whole world was falling apart. But that was the defining moment for me. When that happened, I said to myself, I will make the right type of decisions in life about where I want to go. I will not move because of money, because that was one of the reasons that I had moved. And I will only go into places where I know I will find stability and growth. And then I started looking again and sent CVs all over the place. And one day, going through an issue of Financial Mail, I stumbled upon a profile of Moki Makura, who was the CMD of FCB Redline at the time. And I did the same thing I did with the ladies from the development agency. I emailed, I called, I emailed, I called, I emailed, I called. Yeah. And eventually she also called me in and said, listen, you are a pain in the butt, but let's chat. Let me hear what you're about. And she made it the longest interview of my life, where I saw her, and then I saw her partner, and then I saw other people in the business, and then I also had to do a test and come and present to her and the team, and eventually landed. And that's sort of been the trajectory since then.
I mean, I think there's so much I can take out of that, but through your story, I think we can add adjectives like persistence and resilience to your journey. But more so than anything, I think what stood out for me is intentional change. Like you mentioned, is that once you were retrenched, it got to a point where you had to be intentional about your decisions.
Sure.
And I think with that, it also requires somebody who's going to retrospectively, and much like you said for Ogilvy, you had to present who you are. What would you say were pivotal, good or bad, moments within your career that, besides the retrenchment, that you could add to who you are and your success story as Lebo Madiba that we know of today?
Yeah, so after that, after handing Moki, I was at FCB for about 8 years, about 7 years. And she was a co-MD, so she left, and then her co-MD took over, Kim Ferreira. And at some point she decided to immigrate. And when she left, I thought that I was ready to take over from her, and it didn't happen. The company placed in an MD, and it was a very upset, you know, when you're bitter and angry because you felt that was mine and I needed that was mine and I needed to be there. And even more upsetting for me was that the person that came in was male, and they were also not a PR person. It was an accountant that came in to be an MD for a PR agency. So huge upset for me. Him and I have since become very good mates. But that was another moment for me, because I thought what it did for me was I had always positioned myself for growth. I just didn't position myself for leadership. And if they didn't pick me for that role, it means that there was something in me that I felt that I wasn't doing enough for them to have the confidence that I can do the job. So that was sort of the second defining moment. And from that moment, it was to say, I'm here for growth, but more than anything, I also want to lead. And then the task of developing myself as a leader started at that moment. I then left FCB to join Chilibush, and at Chilibush, that's when I became MD. And I thought, yes, I have arrived. You know, that feeling of I've made it. But there have been many, many, many other growth moments since that one.
That's amazing. And I think that's the reason why we have this Imbokodo edition, is that, you know, for the fact that women in corporate are facing quite a lot of challenges, being that they are pushed behind because I guess there is a male figure or counterpart that can come and take over that position. Also context, sometimes it will be the angry Black woman. So there's many connotations and many scenarios that have been create the system that we work in and live in. But with the success that you've mentioned, given the gender gap in the workplace, especially like you say, leadership, how did you overcome that? I know you've mentioned about growth and you've spoken about leadership and management in a sense, but how did you then really embark on a way personally to find that, how do I bridge that gap to be now finally an MD?
Yeah, it was a lot of internal work, a lot of coaching as well, and a lot of finding sponsors. I'm a firm believer in finding people that can speak for you when you're not there. And I managed through my career to find those types of people who believed in me in as much as I believed in myself and what I can do. surround yourself with good people, which is one thing that really, for me, defines good leaders, because you must know that you don't know everything, and that you are only as good as the people that are around you. So it's having people that believe in me, having a lot of mentorship. Studying has helped as well, because then you're able to advance yourself, to be able to have the right type of conversations, because as you rise into leadership, the language also changes. The way that people talk in those and engage at that level is very different. Emotional intelligence is very important as well, because we're often very fiery. Something happens and you want to fight, because, you know, it's the natural instinct. And you get to that level and you realize that you have to be calculated about how you react, who you reach out to, who you connect to, and just generally how you engage, to make sure that exactly what you said, you're not seen as the angry woman, the angry Black woman, but you're seen more as a counterpart. And I think for me, the most important part has been to get myself to a level where I'm not seen as a woman, I'm not seen as a Black woman either, I'm seen as a counterpart.
You've said such amazing and important important things within saying that, you know, you are not now labeled before I have a conversation with you, the prejudice of whatever I have about a Black woman, a woman, you know, a certain age, whatever prejudice you have, now remove that. And it's more about me and you in an equal sense. And I think we've seen it, and we'll get to a bit of the entrepreneurship side, but we have seen that in many entrepreneurs. And I think back to my story, and I really thought, you know, I really love entrepreneurship. And I remember I was 15. We were not allowed to sell anything in school, but somehow or another, I don't know what probed me to sell, I call them fake beacon bites. I think now that it could have become a PR disaster, because they were knockoffs, you know. And because, but I think for me, it's also quite amazing to hear, you know, success stories, but we never get to hear maybe a pivotal, and we've mentioned a pivotal moment, but, you know, where you were like, what a PR mess, I could say in this instant, but how did you overcome something like that? Because I think that adds to the story of people understanding you as this person who's grown in this role, firstly, but also somebody who can manage situations at hand. Linking back to a PR disaster that could have happened, you know, just to give us maybe one hint of maybe where you were like, yeah, no, Esvar, here it's over in terms of a PR journey. Because I think for me, PR is like really putting out fires. It's like that's the one part of it, but it's really is a communication, you know, with the consumers, or B2Bs, B2Cs, and so forth.
Yeah, true. There's been quite a few. I think in mainly the entrepreneurial journey, it's been about getting clients to buy into you and to trust you. And when you're an entrepreneur, especially when you start out on your own, as I did, is that your clients start buying into you as a person more than buying into the agency. And as you grow and you try to distance yourself from being the person that does the work and getting the team to do the work, there are so many breaks in transmission, if I can call it that, where clients feel like, I mean, I went through a time where I would on a daily get a mail from a client that says, if you don't come back on this, we are leaving, you know, because we bought into you and we want you and we believe in your capability. So the PR disaster there for me is you can't really try and be the entrepreneur, grow a business, and also be the person that does the work. So there's a lot of building of trust, not only between yourself as entrepreneur and the clients, but also helping the people under you get to a level where the clients get to trust them as well. So, you know, the fear of losing those clients also meant, you know, stretching myself badly across trying to do the right thing, run the business, and then also lead.
Yeah. I mean, you've mentioned parts of, you know, having to play both the entrepreneur leader, and I presume also a mentor of some sort, I guess, when you're developing the people within your team. I personally can recall, and it is not that I'm imposing, but I believe in mentorship just because I got into a role where I was like, I can do it. Much like you say, where people go and they are underqualified, but it was just about the belief. And when I got my role, I was like, oh, so now I actually have to work. And the beauty about technology, I think, as I am typing and really studying and figuring out how to get around my role, and it's so happy that moves to explore, of course, because of, like I say, the beauty of technology. It's picked up my cookies, and certain people pop up, and then I realized that actually I'm just going to try my luck, just email everybody and anybody that I see here. And I emailed and I got responses of people who are working for alcohol brands that were amazing PR specialists there. And they became now part of a network of individuals that when I felt that I don't know if I really trust this idea and I'm going to present tomorrow, I don't know if this is going to be, you know, the bomb pitch that I can give to people. You know, would you say that mentorship is a thing for you, firstly, and maybe also your thoughts around mentorship and a successful, I could say, relationship? I think there's a saying that there's a time and a season and a reason for an individual to thought. Like you say, Scholastic helps you with being able to understand things a lot better, read things a lot better, see things a lot better. So with you, you know, I can only imagine that you've mentioned about an amazing network of building people around you. But what is your take on mentorship?
I'm a firm believer in mentorship, and funny enough, I was having a conversation about mentorship yesterday because Teho, who once worked for me in the first round of PR Powerhouse, sent me a WhatsApp and says, so how come you never became my mentor? And I said to her, well, you never asked. And well, you never asked, but she was asking because someone else has reached out to her to say, please, will you be able to be my mentor? And I said to her, that person needs to reach out to me directly. And I want to know what they want to get out of it. I think mentorship works when there is an agreement between the mentor and the mentee to say, as a mentor, this is what I can provide. And as a mentee, I want to know what your goals are, so that I can help you achieve them. Because a lot of the time, I find that people say, will you be my mentor? But they don't know what they want to get out of you. So what is it that I'm, as a mentor, going to provide if you're not able to say to me, this is what I want from you, this is what I want for myself? And for me, it works when you say, this is what I want for myself, and I want your help with this, and that, because then the relationship is mutual. I'm giving, you're also giving. There are no takers, right? Because we both learn from each other, and I can support you through the journey. And it's also trackable, because what's the point of just having these engagements, but there's no results, there's nothing to show for it. So if you say to me, this is my plan for the year, this is what I want to achieve, this is what's happening at work, this is where I think the opportunities are, these are the people that I would like to talk to, I just don't know how to talk to them, I just don't know how to approach them, and so on, then I can work with you to say, okay, here's the plan, why don't you try this and try, and I'm not going to do it for you. Also, that's my thing about how I believe that mentorship relationships should work, is you are going to do all the work, but I'll be your sounding board. I will give you the advice, I will open the doors where I need to open doors for you, but you must still be the person that goes in to do the work.
I mean, that is in full agreement. I remember when I've emailed my lecturer to say that I want to go work at a post-production company while studying television. And he was like, okay, go ahead. And there I am emailing. Of course, when they come back to say, hey, what do you want? I'm like, lecturer, they want. they want something from me. What do I give them? I think that was my first point of initiation, like you say. It was my first point of really then assessing, like you say, and I think it goes back to what you started by intentional change, is that I was looking at what do I want to do, and how do I get there. And he said, state what it is that you want, state the timing of it, and then so like you said, track. So at the end of maybe my 6-month tenure there, I'm able to say, okay, tick, I worked on a movie, tick, I edited a 1, 2, 3, tick, I was a project manager for 1, 2, 3. So I think it is very powerful when you say that you need to also know what it is that you're saying I'm coming with, or what do I want to gain out of this. Like you say, it's not a taking situation, but it's also I'm going to be giving, depositing myself into this, which is absolutely true. Before I get even to the part, because I think there will be a part where we want to get that advice, but we really want to know perhaps the 3 misconceptions that people have about leaders, of which you've mentioned, I think, previously in terms of, leadership role. But what are the 3 misconceptions maybe that you can share and have proven to be true or not true, in your time as a leader?
I think one of the big ones, and it's the one that I mentioned earlier, is people think leaders know everything. They don't. I mean, I've had many instances where I'm sitting and there's a decision to be made, and I'm like, so what needs to happen now? I don't know what needs to happen now. But the problem with that, or the reality of that, is you have a whole lot of people that are looking onto you to make that decision. So for me, that leaders don't know everything, but leaders surround themselves with good people. Like I mentioned earlier, it's if you have good people around you, you're able to pull from their knowledge, you're able to pull from their expertise, you're able to pull from their energy as well. And then you're able to build something from there. You can't build alone. I'm a firm believer in that. You can't build alone. You need people around you so you can build with them. And the relationship then becomes a mutual one between yourself as a leader and as your people, because it also means that people appreciate you because you see them. And that's for me very important. The second one is that leaders don't work. They do. You might not see it. They work. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes in making sure that a business runs, and it runs efficiently and effectively. It's making the right moves. It's going in the right direction. It's attracting the right type of people in terms of talent. It's attracting the right type of people in terms of clients and customers and whatever field that you're in. So the notion that leaders don't work is not true. There's quite a lot that goes in. Ultimately, the financial health of a business is pegged on the leader. So yeah, that's pretty important. And if it's not doing well, trust me, there are lots of sleepless nights of thinking and planning and plotting to see, how best to make it work. And that leaders are confident in their decisions. Sometimes we're not. Sometimes it's let's do it and see how it goes. And that's why I think that it's important for leaders to know that you must not be afraid to fail. But the important thing about failing is that you must fail fast. So make the decision, let it fail if it fails, but also while you're allowing it to fail, have a plan B, C, and D until you get to a point where you are at the right decision.
I mean, I think the fail fast is one thing taking and running with. I think we tend to fear to fail. We tend to fear to start because of failure. And you've said also something very important, the fact that we are looking up at our leaders. I can only begin to imagine if my leader said to me that I don't know. I'm like, hey, whoa, what do you mean you don't know?
You must know if you don't, right?
What do you mean you don't know?
Yeah.
So I can imagine, like you're saying, the pressure of that. But to get to a point where you're level-headed, like you say, where you have to supposedly have the straight face of being able to respond. I mean, I think what I love about when we're sitting in meetings, my boss always says to me that if you don't know, that's okay. That's also okay, but make it seem like you know.
Yeah.
And you know, whilst
that's the important part.
make it seem like you know. So I was like, okay, got it. And at that time, you don't know what's happening internally because I'm like, I don't know what is going on. But you know, I think that also goes with and I guess, like you say, looking up to a generation with, for example, yourself with 20 years of this experience. You've gone the ins and outs, the ups, the downs, the winters, the summers of the industry. What advice would you give to myself and similarly, you know, people who are saying, Lebo, I'm in PR, I'm in influencer marketing, I'm in communications, just maybe three elemental things that we could take out of the journey.
Yeah, I think fear. Don't be fearful. If you believe in it, if you think you're good enough in it, just go for it. I think if I look back on my journey, I've got quite a number of moments where I look back and I think if I hadn't doubted myself there, if I was not fearful to raise my voice, to ask for it, I would have been, you know, I would have gone further quicker. So fear, like rule out fear out of your life. Be very intentional and very clear about where you want to go. I mean, I'm at the moment reincarnating and bringing back PR Powerhouse after going through a process where it got acquired, and then I went into Ogilvy, and then I looked at, it gave me sort of a chance to look at, if I'm going to come back and I'm coming back as PR Powerhouse again, what am I going to do differently? So for me, that's about reinvention. So don't be afraid of reinventing. So you are not going to be an influencer marketing manager forever, you know? What is the evolution of that? So what is what you're doing now going to look like next year? What is it going to look like the year after? And 10 years later? But 10 years later, I mean, a lot of people are saying now, I guess everyone failed the question to say, where would you be in 5 years' time? 5 years ago, because look at us now, 5 months at home. Due to COVID, I can't plan for 10 years. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be solid plans to say when in 10 years' time I'm going to be CEO, but it must be a developmentally, what I want to do for myself is 1, 2, 3, and then be able to just, you know, keep looking back and seeing if you're still on the right track, and just have fun with it. I think we take our jobs so seriously that, you know, the fear grips you, and you have lived 5 years through the job and you spent 5 years of that not enjoying it because, you know, you were fearful of that, or that didn't work, or you failed there, and so on. For me, success is a mixture of all of those things. It's a mixture of overcoming your fear. It's a mixture of going for the bold where you think that you are not ready, but the people around you think you are, and you just throw yourself in there and swim.
Yeah. I mean, you to summarize that, I mean, you've spoken about not fearing. You've spoken about intention and clarity. And I think that also goes to with the self, sitting with self, you know, being with one, and really focusing as to my career as an individual. And I think it also links then to the part where you speak about fun. I think in previous series, more so on the Important Edition, our guests have mentioned having some sort of passion and excitement for what you do. Now, I mean, I just want to take it just a quick step back in terms of, you know, the entrepreneurship journey. And I can only imagine, we know this industry is plagued by saying the entry barriers are high, you know, like we know that a comms Black woman is like, you know, when did she start? Advertising also. So we know already what are the kind of the issues that I could say that are at hand. And I think for you, like you're saying, with no fear, the mental clearly had to be clear to say that this is what I'm doing, come hail or high water, I'm entering into that. But what were your kind of, you could say, your steps and thought process in going into that business in PR, and really, like I say, shaking, you know, the industry as this PR powerhouse that comes through and changing what the trajectory or things that we kind of thought, you know, it was only, you know, the Caucasian white people who mates who have big businesses who, you know, own this industry. You know, how did you go about doing that?
So when I started, I was very clear with myself that the kind of PR I want, I mean, there's lots of fears of PR, as you know, and my experience had mainly been in corporate comms, and there haven't been a lot of Black people that do or specialized in corporate communications. And at the time I thought, I'm going to do it. Come hell or high water, I'm going to give it a try. And like I said, it's about failing fast and failing forward. I'm going to do it. And in the agency that I was with before starting my business, I had a client that's based in Denmark, and he referred he referred Maersk, the shipping company, to me when I told him that I was going out on my own. And I Googled Maersk. I didn't even know who Maersk was. He sent me a mail to say, listen, I have just sent your details to Maersk. They're looking for a PR agency in South Africa. I know you've just started out. Talk to them. And I Googled Maersk, and it came up as the world's largest shipping company. And there I was sitting with my laptop on my bed, and that was my agency. And I had a bit of a, you know, what's this, and what am I going to do? And they emailed me, and I acted with all professionalism, a little bit of pretense that I'm not a one-man show. There's a full support structure behind what I do. And we had a lot of interaction on mail, and then the head of comms was going to fly into South Africa to meet agencies, and he said to me that he was meeting 3 agencies, and I thought, crap, you know, it's not going to work. And I went into that meeting. I got in, and I'm very tiny. I'm like very short and petite. So I walk into the room. Yes, and then I walk into the room. He greets me very well, and he says, "Where's Lebo? Is he still coming? Will he be joining us?" I'm so defeated. I'm like, well, here is Lebo. This is all there is. If you're looking for bigger than this, taller than this, more male than this, this is it. This is what you're getting. This is who I am. Yeah, and I was, this is it. And they appointed me, and I was with them for 3.5 years. And for me, that was the platform that said, ride it. So I was able to make a lot of noise about having secured one of the world's biggest large shipping companies as a client, because that builds you the confidence. So if that's your opening line, it just makes it easier for others to know that if they can trust her, then so can we. So I think the moral of that story is build relationships. In my first two, 3 years of running PR Powerhouse, all my clients were not pitched for, they were referrals. Wow. So, and it's referrals from people I had worked with in the past. It's from people that I had just started engaging with and build relationships with. So your network is, if you're wanting to go into entrepreneurship, your network is your most powerful tool.
So you said something that I'm like, you made me think a bit. Now, you know, with regards to networking, I think it's relationship building, like you say. The unfortunate part, I guess, with many a times people would be like, hey, Black leaders, you know, Black women leaders. And I mean, from my interaction with you, I can only imagine that you have probably denied, or you really deny that statement in your interactions with people, and it only shows in terms of the networks that you've built. But, you know, how, in terms of, you've spoken about IQ, and I think scholastic activities add value to who you are as an individual and how you see things, like you mentioned. You know, how important would it be, like, to expand within a more scholar type in the career, in your career? And also, I think how how do we actually find ourselves creating those good relationships, be it with our subordinates, but also with peers, with certain levels of leadership?
Yeah. I mean, in a working environment, people trust you if you say you will do what you say you will do, right?
Mm.
So if you are hired in a role and your role is to make sure that everybody is buying Mac in numbers, right? And they ask you, can you do that? And you say, of course I can, right?
Convincingly so.
Then, yes, then you must do it. And once you've done it and people see that you can, then that trust comes in. And that goes a long way. So, and then you move from the company that you're with to the other. You don't burn bridges in where you come from, because especially in our sector, it's a very, very, very small agency. I think we probably don't even have 7 degrees of separation. We probably have 3, where someone knows someone who knows you. So
exactly.
yeah, so you build, you don't burn bridges, leave your jobs well enough so that you can even go back. Because I remember when I started at FCB, I left to join FNB, who were clients. They poached me from FCB to say, please, will you join us? And I left FCB, and I had a discussion with my boss, and I said, I appreciate the opportunities that you have given me. I haven't done corporate, and I'd like to go and experience it. And she looked at me and she said, you're not a corporate person. Where do you think you're going? And I said to her, I just want to go and try it. Okay. I went, and 3 months later, I called her back. I was like, I can't, call me back. These are not my people. Oh, yeah. Yes, these are not my people. They don't do what we do the way we do it. You know, the agency and the corporate PR and agency PR are totally, totally different. You know, the drivers, the energy, the diversity of work in agency and what you do, and the pace as well, and what you do on the corporate side are very different. So I called her up and I said, Kim, I need to come back. And she said, when? And I said, as soon as you can have me, as soon as you have me, and as soon as these people would let me go. And I was able to resign here and go back to the agency. And it's, like I said, it's respect people, do what you're hired to do, give a little bit of yourself, and just so people get to know you more than just what you do, just so they know your soul as well. Obviously, without giving too much of yourself, because then it becomes very draining. And just ride on that. I think for me, if I look back, I have upset a few people in the past. So I know that there are people that you will talk to and say, when they will say, but I do also have a lot more people that would say more positives than the ones that would say the negatives.
I think that goes with any individual, to be honest with you. But yeah. I think, and more so for our younger people who are looking up, I think those who are more into, what do I study? What do I do? How do I go about there? And of course, maybe things have changed in terms of the avenues of which, how to get there. For that youth who's really trying to figure out, how do I maneuver my way within PR? A child who's even not perhaps who has that incline to PR, but can't even put a finger on what is it exactly that I'm looking for. How would you say they would maneuver their way? And I think, like we've said, that education has played such a big role also. How do we find yourself in terms of post-grad studies? What would you say is a way of which we can weave yourself into the career?
I think on that part, I think social media has given a lot of people power to find and define themselves for other people. But a lot of people fall into the trap of not using it to the best of their ability, right? So we need, if you know, especially if you know, if you want to go into our type of field, you need to make yourself visible, right? And being visible is no more, I mean, if I told you my story of hounding those people that I faxed and the people in Moki that I emailed, I think today if I did that, she would just easily delete those emails, because the life has changed and it's not what it used to be. But people have got social media, and there's so much power in social media. And although your social media platforms are personal to you, they're also open to the world. So the key thing is to look at how do I still make it fun and engaging, where I can go and have silly, be silly, but also find a gap where people get to see the professional me. Write about your achievements, write some thoughts about what you think. If you're interested in branding, follow brands, look at what brands are doing. When you get a gap to comment about a brand, do that, but in a way that you start attracting the type of people that go onto your social platforms to see what kind of views you have about branding and that sort of thing, because that starts attracting and building a pool of people who see you. So we must make the tools that we have available to us, put them to good use, I think.
And standing out. Now, we have spoken about an amazing woman being Lebo, and I speak in third person. But what's in for Lebo? When we are saying Lebo in the next, we can't say 5 years, as you can see, COVID kind of changed those plans.
COVID has changed all of that.
But we talk about intention. What is the next exciting, be it a move? I know you've mentioned that you have kind of acquired PR powerhouse, but what is in store for us, I could say, because I think the beauty about marketing advertising is that it's not something you consume on your own. It's something that consumers, companies, and people kind of get an opportunity to enjoy your growth in career and your what you produce, to be honest.
I can't say a lot about it, but I can't. You will know when it's ready. You will know. But it's I've done PR and I've done branding and I've done marketing in the last 20 years, and I feel like I need to get out of it a little bit and do something different from what I've always done. So working on a new platform, aiming to have it ready before the end of the year. And I am very excited about it, and I'm hoping that it'll make a few people excited as well.
I mean, we're going to make sure that we are following at Leboneta to see exactly what are the new things that are coming up. Indeed. And I think you've really just epitomized what you've mentioned in terms of reinventing self, is that yes, you've been in the industry for 20 years, but I've reviewed and I'm reinventing and finding things that you're saying are and quite fun, be it you within marketing, because I do believe that marketing PR is something that weaves itself in anything that you do. So unfortunately, you can't run away.
No, I can't. I've looked at that and I thought, where else? There's nowhere else. There's nowhere else to go.
I couldn't do anything in science because I was like, I'm going to blow up facilities. So we're just gonna stay here and enjoy, because I think also it's ever evolving, it's ever changing. Like you've mentioned, you have enjoyed tech, because I love the technology, because it's constantly changing. It's constantly requiring you to understand, read, find out how do businesses and how does this affect businesses going into the new fiscals, etc. So I think you've covered so much, and I've seen people come back to say that thank you, Lebo. The gems that you dropped have been absolutely amazing. Again, like I've mentioned, I am absolutely honored to have shared this virtual stage with you, and I literally am going to continue going back to this live stream and really just going to understand you know, in terms of mentorship, like we've mentioned, we've touched on barriers that you've had to break, pivotal moments that really had to find you, you know, digging deep and coming back and reliving and reviving the passion that you had, and also finding yourself shaking an industry of which people then, you know, didn't know of. And I think each individual has the power to do such great differences within their space, because you're an individual with your own energy, your own vibe, your own vision. So I can only thank you. And of course, to thank our guests that have live streamed us, and we got to watch Lebo Madiba and myself facilitating this conversation. And of course, thank you to our Pat for allowing us to have this Imbokodo edition. Without any much more with you, and have a lovely afternoon. Bye.
This was good. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in into the Brands Dialogues.